Hello me lovers, this is Pedro Studios and we are back. We are designing either a medal, trophy, badge or a kit for 8 of these countries, which will be determined by our spinning wheel. So we're going to go through 3 design stages in this process. This includes drawing, this includes CAD modelling, so this is modelling on the computer, and then finally going to do some prototypes for some countries. So anyway, let's get into it and I really hope you enjoy. So now it's time to go to the wheel, which will tell us which country we are designing for first. So let's get to it. Hopefully it's a big one, but we'll see. Come on. So what we're gonna get, looks like Mexico. Okay, so the host of the 2026 World Cup. So a couple of things that you might already know about Mexico in this World Cup. They are the first ever country to host 3 men's World Cups. Now, they've had 18 appearances. However, they have had this thing called the round of 16 curse, where they haven't really been able to get past the round of 16. They have, however, got it past once in the quarterfinals, but I do think this might be the World Cup that they get beyond that because of their group at the moment. They have fairly easy groups to get past, and I think this is their biggest chance in years. So for our drawings of Mexico FC, we have top left the club logo, and this is kind of where the bird is bouncing on the ball. I don't know why, but it's quite a cool design. I wanted to play around with this bird design, however. So as you can see top right, I have used the wings of the bird kind of wrapping around the World Cup itself, as I also wanted to keep the World Cup shape, as I didn't really in the last video, and I just thought, let's say these players wanted a trophy to represent the World Cup, then it will still be there. So in my next drawing, we kind of have a wing base from the birds in the badge, and also a camera shutter design, because I really liked how the spikes, when you twist it, it goes inwards and kind of shuts it, and then the players can twist it and it opens and it'll just reveal itself. And these spikes are also from the logo. But I think this is quite a unique way around taking inspiration from the badge itself, as it doesn't go straight into the bird, it uses little tiny features of each part. And then for the rest of the designs, I wasn't too sure what I was really going for, so I just tried to get as many ideas down. Let's get forward to the CAD modelling, where we're going to actually model this, and then we're next going to be rendering it so you can see all the materials which is added to it, which is going to be very exciting. So for my first design for the Mexico trophy, I kind of tried to use the Day of the Dead as inspiration from the face and the top hat, but I soon scrapped this as I didn't want to give kids nightmares, and it looked a bit scary itself. It didn't look anything like the Day of the Dead. Anyway, moving on, we have a new wing design. So the wing design was inspired by the badge, and I also wanted to kind of put a ball on the top as if the wings are holding the ball. But I had to try and play around with a wing shape. I didn't know if I should do them symmetrical at first or at an angle, but this is what I went for in the end. I also wanted to add kind of a plaque towards the bottom of the trophy, and this can soon be seen where I put spikes on the outside, and this is also taken from the badge. And in the rendering stage, I will be deciding what to do with the colours and what the ball could be on the top. So now moving on to our rendering for Mexico, we have the wing kind of shape with all the feathers, and I feel like this kind of adds to their badge a little bit, as in their badge they have a massive wing with a massive bird in it. And then my main kind of colours I wanted to use for this design were red, green and white. This is our Mexico trophy for the World Cup 2026. Now as you can see, we used the feathers from the badge and use this for the structure. And we also use the green and the white colours, which match the colours of the badge. I'm really happy with this design. One downside of this design, which I probably would change in the future, is just the Jambalani football on top, because it looks a bit like a football holder rather than a trophy. I feel like next time I would do the wing as the structure, and then maybe do the ball as the base. I feel like that might look a little bit more unique, but we'll look at that another time. Anyway, moving on to the next country. So let's see what the wheel gives us next for a country. Right, let's spin that wheel. We get Qatar, the last host of the World Cup in 2022, I believe, when Argentina won. So sadly for Qatar, they couldn't get through the group stage, even though they spent hundreds and billions of pounds on infrastructure for the World Cup 2022. Let's hope that some of this money has gone to good use and all the players are ready to go. So I have decided to do a kit for Qatar. Now, they do have white and purple, which is the only country to have only white and purple in. And I think this will be quite a good baseline. I know I also really like the jagged edges on the flag. Now, this could be incorporated to be the bottom of the shirt, for example. Something a bit unique, something that you don't see in your everyday football shirts. Now, let's get into the designing. So for the drawings for Qatar, I wanted to use the zigzag kind of pattern on the flag. Almost looks a bit ragged, but also stylish. And I also think the white shorts matching with this t-shirt makes it look like the players are running around with a flag attached to them. I don't know, I think it's quite a cool concept personally, but I also wanted to use different shapes, like different ways the zigzag line can move. So this was across the t-shirt, it was a little rounded part, and maybe just one section here. So another design I wanted to move forward with is using the patterns from the thobe, which is kind of the robes that go round their head. So it's usually red and white, and you can see this in the middle section of the black t-shirt. I think this is a cool concept, maybe something that we move forward with. I do think this design is a good idea, but I kind of want to keep just the white and the red rather than adding black too. I feel like the colours work better when it's just the two by themselves. So I'll be exploring these going into Photoshop in the next stage. Anyway, let's get into it. So now for Qatar, as you can see, we are designing a kit for them, but this is going to be a more realistic one than the drawings because they were a little bit all over the place and they were just concepts. Now, we wanted to use the kind of spikes that they have in the flag and some of their older kits and use that in this kit here. I also took the collar from this kit here. I kind of like the lines down the side. It adds a bit of almost a retro look to me. So now, as you can see, we are putting the spikes on the shoulder, kind of sleeve bit here, and adding the Adidas sponsor of Qatar. Now, I'm only going to very briefly go through this one. Our next kit uses stripes from another kit and a badge from another kit, and the Qatar Airways one. So let's now talk about this in more detail. So next up for the kit for Qatar, as you can see, these are my designs here. At first I wanted to use the jagged edges, however I felt like this might be a bit uncomfortable for the players as we have to remember they are moving around a lot and they might not want spikes going into their arms. So instead I just used the patterns which have been printed over the top. We also have the bottom half on each design as red and then the top as white. I also like how there's stripes on one of the shoulders as there's also stripes on the Adidas symbol below it. Now, even though it's not symmetrical like most football kits are, it does add a little bit of difference to the rest of them. But overall, I really like these designs. I prefer this one as it has the centre badge and the sponsor of Adidas on it, and also the jagged edges printed on top, and the collar adds a bit of style to the players so they'll look their best on their World Cup days. Anyway, on to the next country. So for our next country, let's have a gander at what the wheel gives us. Let's take a look. What do we get? We get the Czech Republic. Right, the Czech Republic, their last appearance before the 2026 World Cup was, I believe, 2006. They did come second in 2 World Cups in 1934 and 1962. So let's hope that they do still have a chance of winning the World Cup. You never know. So I've decided to design a badge for Czech Republic. I really like the layout of their flag. It's nice and symmetrical, and I thought I could incorporate all of the shapes of, the triangle, for example, and the 2 lines on the outside. I feel like this will be a great structure to the badge itself. So let's get into designing right now. Let's go! Now, what I really like about their flag is they have almost a patchwork going. So looking further into the Czech Republic, I noticed that they did actually use a lot of patchwork in their religious practices. And I thought this was a great start to playing around with their badge and rearranging different symbols. And as you can see on here, this is our final patchwork design. And if you see bottom right, there is the blue, red and white outline. I really want to incorporate this into this design too. So let's get into Adobe Illustrator and test this out.
So now for the Czech Republic, I kind of wanted to use a patchwork design, as this is seen a lot in their culture, especially for their religious beliefs. So here you can see top left, I use a cross design, on the right I use some birds, and in the middle I use a lion, so it shows how much of a strong team they are, I guess. So that's why the 3 lions have 3, because we're stronger. No, I can't say that. But anyway, we have the same orientation, so the red, blue and the white kind of on the outside of this, and this is in the same orientation as the flag.
So next up is the badge for Czech Republic. Now, as you can see, we use pretty much all of the features used from the drawings. We have the lion in the centre and the 2 birds on the right hand side for patchwork. We also have the outline of blue, red and white. But I really think this badge is very symbolic of Czech Republic's religious practices, with all the patchwork and also the colours showing the flag as a bit of a personal touch for them. So now we're coming up to the halfway mark. Let's see what we get for our 4th country. We end up getting Sweden! Sweden! So one of Pedro's little fun facts, did you know that Sweden came 2nd in 1958? That's the highest that they've ever come, so maybe we could start a new record. They don't have Zlatan Ibrahimovic like they did in the past, so no overhead kicks or scissor kicks, you never know. But also, did you know that Zlatan Ibrahimovic, even though he scored so many goals for Sweden, he never scored in a World Cup? So Gyökeres is a new favourite. We will see if this Arsenal striker will be the new top scorer for Sweden. So I have decided to design a medal for Sweden. Now I could use the blue and the yellow cross as kind of the structure of the medal, but I'm thinking of maybe instead of yellow it could be gold. So we're going to have a little play around with this in the next stage. So for Sweden, I have done some drawings of the medal. Now, I wanted to really use the ball looking thing on the top of the badge and use that as the centre point of the medal to give it some personalised touch to it. I also wanted to play around with just putting a yellow cross and blue on the outside, representing their flag. So another way around this design was using the patchwork from the Czech Republic, as I really like this design feature. I had 4 sections to deal with using the flag, so splitting it into 4 different sections. I decided to go for reindeers, windmill, Viking helmets, and the patterns on clothing. This includes like flowers, and they use this on the dresses of the ladies, and they wear this when they dance around. So I thought this was quite an interesting feature to add. Another design that I felt like was kind of a weird way of going around it, but it kind of works, is a meatball. Now, have you ever been to IKEA and you get Swedish meatballs? Well, I know you have, because everyone's had it. But this has a meatball in the centre and a piece of spaghetti to go around the neck. It's probably not the most strong design, but I think it looks very cool. And instead of just having a medal that they just carry around for years, they can eat it. So I think that's incredible. Anyway, moving on to the ribbons, we have a checkered pattern, which is blue and yellow. We have the reindeer antlers, which I really like this design, and also the little clothing patterns. But we're going to move into Adobe Illustrator and play around with these designs, and I'll show you what I got for my final design.
Now, I really kind of like the sections that they have in their flag, and I saw this in the drawings and I thought this will be a cool way to kind of put different designs into one medal. Now, I wanted to use their culture, especially as this is going to be a personalised medal more than something that you can give to everyone.
So next up, we have Sweden. We designed a medal, and as you can see, it looks very similar to the drawings that were made. So as you can see, the ring on the outside and the cross in the centre is inspiration from the flag. So as you can see, for the ribbon here, it's blue, so it complements the yellow, so it really brings the flag into perspective. Now, on the ribbon, there are antlers here, and I think this is perfect because they're in perfect placement where a reindeer's antlers usually are on their heads. Another thing I added was the patchwork, and this was taken from the Czech Republic, as I really liked the different sections of different patterns and images. I thought it was very cool. Now we have the flowers, which are used in the parade dresses, and I thought that's a nice touch. We've got the reindeer, we've got a windmill, and a Swedish Viking hat, because in Swedish, dressing up as the Vikings is very popular. They love doing it. So overall, I really like this design. I like how the ribbon has antlers on. I love how the flag has been used to split each patchwork into quarters. And I feel like this is very symbolic of Swedish culture. Anyway, what do we get for the next country? Let's have a look. So now we are past the halfway mark. Now let's have a look what we get for our 5th country. Hopefully it's a banger. I'm really hoping for one of those African teams because I love the colours that they use in their everyday fashion, and I feel like I could incorporate this into a kit, for example. So we're gonna soon see. Let's take a look. We get Ghana, that's amazing. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted, because now I can incorporate all of these colours, and their flag is beautiful. It's one of my favourite flags probably in the entire world. It has a bit of yellow, bit of red, bit of green, and it has a black star in the middle. And that's their name of their team. They are known as the Black Stars. Ghana's most famous players are known as Abigail, Essien and Gian. Right, if you've heard of those three, they are incredible footballers. Essien played for Chelsea and he was an absolute superstar. I will put down the clip here of his volley outside of the box. It was a stunner of a goal. One thing I do not want to see in the World Cup again is this move from Luis Suarez. This handball denied Ghana's chance of getting into the semi-finals. This move by Luis Suarez didn't show very good sportsmanship, which is why he is one of the most hated players. But hopefully Ghana can move forward with this, as they are in the same group as England, who they probably will beat depending what Teakle's moves are. We will shortly see. So now let's move on to designing the kit for Ghana. Let's go. So for Ghana, I really wanted to use as many patterns as possible. I took this from their fashion, what they have in shops in Ghana, and what people prefer the most. So out of all of these drawings, I really like the blue kind of tuxedo looking design, but it's not. The blue bit in the center is where the buttons are, and then it kind of wraps around with lots of white patterns. And I feel like using this would really bring out their artistic culture. My next favourite design was the green outline with the colourful yellow, red and green dotted pattern down the middle, and I felt like if I do a badge in the centre, this can really stand out well. But anyway, moving on to Photoshop, I'm going to try and play around with these designs a little bit, and then I'll come up and show you what I've got.
So now we are designing in Photoshop for Ghana. So as you can see here, I'm using lots and lots of different shirts as inspiration for this design. Now I've taken different shirts from Vinted, which is a really good place to look at if you're designing football shirts, and a couple other sites too. So as you can see here, I used the black stars on the sleeve of the kind of t-shirt, almost the shoulder bit, and I really wanted to use kind of 11 black stars because 11 would represent all of the black stars of the football team. However, it wasn't really possible with the size of the picture that I was using. So now using the actual badge, I'm trying to put the black star behind it, which is the central point of the flag. It's basically the focus point, so that's what they are known for, as the Black Stars. So now my next step is putting that on the centre of the kit. As you can see, I had to clean up the little beaded patterns in the actual shirt, and overall it had a very clean look with the patterns on the shoulder to the flag on the lower bit. And for the collar bit here, you can see I'm colouring it in a bit of red, a bit of yellow, and keeping the green from the actual kit, as it adds a vibrant aesthetic to the overall kit, and I'm very happy with it.
So next up we have Ghana, aka the Black Stars. Now for this design we have used the flag on each of the arm sleeves, and we've also used the colours of the flag for the collar, which I think is quite a nice touch. This design also has lots of patterns, as in Ghana, lots of people's clothes and their fashion sense has a lot of patterns on it. So we have a dotted shirt here with lots of patterns on the inside. It kind of looks like one of those things when you did when you were younger. They're like these little tiny rings and you put them down in patterns and then you use the iron to kind of melt them together. I don't know if you ever played that, but it kind of looks like that design. And as you can see, we also have some curved patterns on the shoulders. Now I think all of this together works really well, and I'm really happy with it. I like how it's turned out. Anyway, moving on to the next country, let's see what we get. So now we're going to be moving on to the 6th country. Let's see what the wheel gives us. Let's go. We get Brazil. Brazil have qualified for every single World Cup there has ever been, where they've got into the final 7 times, and they have won 5 times. So let's say Brazil get into the final, there's a very high chance they will win. So let's say you were to put a bet on Brazil to win the World Cup. So they have a 9 to 1 chance. I'm not promoting gambling because I don't think you should ever gamble ever. It's a stupid waste of money. But basically, as the odds are at this very stage, it goes Spain, and then France, England, Portugal, and then finally Brazil. So anyway, moving on to the design. As Brazil are my personal favourites for winning the World Cup, I will be designing a trophy for them. And I'm going to make this bigger, I'm going to make it better. I'm probably going to use the 2014 Brazil World Cup logo as inspiration. So let's get into it. So for Brazil, I am designing a trophy, and you can see that I started off by drawing the statue of Christ the Redeemer. Now, I thought maybe it'd be quite cool if you could just raise his arms up, but I do feel like it might be a little bit disrespectful to Jesus if they're just raising him up by his arms, and I think it would look a bit weird on camera. However, I quite like this concept, and I feel like, you know, maybe it's like he's asking for a big hug, so, you know, it might end up hugging the trophy or something, and that might be part of the design, but we'll see where we move forward with it. So for the next trophy design, I went for the hands all kind of wrapping around the trophy, and this was inspired by the logo from the South Africa World Cup. But I feel like for this design, it won't give the personalised feel when the players lift up the trophy, as if it was for South Africa, fair enough, that would be great, but because it's for Brazilian players, it probably won't give off that personalised touch. Which is why I next used the Rio World Cup logo, which was where people are holding lots of hands and they're going in a kind of circle, in a sphere kind of shape. I quite like this touch, but I do feel like it might be very difficult to manufacture, so I'll probably be missing out this design. And another design was using the feathers from the carnivals, but then again, we've used this design before, which is why we go on to our last design. And as you can see, for this final design, it uses the Jabulani football, which kind of defines the laws of physics and curves really weirdly in the air when it's going towards the goal. I know as a fact, the Brazilian players love to use this in the South Africa World Cup, which is why I decided to put it on the podium of the World Cup. But I feel like putting a football on top of this World Cup design instead of just the world design adds a football essence to it, and anyone can get a normal World Cup and give it to basketball players or anything. It doesn't have any football design on it. And finally, to this design, it uses an embossed Brazil logo that's kind of wrapped around the base of the cup itself. Anyway, let's move on to the actual modelling of this trophy.
So now moving on to the modelling stage. For Brazil, I obviously decided to go for a trophy. Now, I kind of chose this egg cup design. It looks stable, but it looks a bit odd at the moment. So to kind of thicken it out in the centre, I decided to choose a band that would go around. Now, this could be where a pattern goes or where the badge goes, but I'm not too sure yet. Now, here we are adding the feathers on the outside because a lot of ladies wear these lovely feathered kind of spikes on their heads in the festivals. But I really like this feather design. It will add a bit of pizzazz to the trophy itself, and you know, you kind of always want a bit of that, something that will stand out. Like in the World Cup is obviously the world on the top. But anyway, moving on to the rendering stage, let's see what we get. So now for the final render for Brazil, you can see we have the feathers on the top, and we're going to be using the Jambulani football kind of on top of this, because I know Brazil players love to use this football. We also have the band in the middle and kind of the anodized finish.
So as you can see, these are the final designs. We've got our rendered version here using Keyshot, and then this is our improved version, which was used using AI. So I know I might get some slander for using AI in my design. However, it is a very, very useful resource to really capture the colours and some of the materials that are not available on some softwares. So as you can see here, I really wanted to use this fuzzy texture, and it wasn't very well captured in Keyshot, but here it looks so much clearer with green at the bottom and yellow at the top. So also, as you can see, we put a Jabulani ball on the top here, as Brazilian players loved playing with it, loved shooting with it, and they scored a lot of goals in the South Africa World Cup where this was first introduced. Another feature I really like to add was the gold bars here and here for some style, and also the logo here for a bit of personalisation. I'm very happy with how this design turned out, so let's move on to the next country and see what we get. 2 countries remain, and let's see which we get for our second to last country. I cannot wait. Let's see what we get. we end up getting Bosnia and Herzegovina. This country is full of great players and absolute legends. We came from Dzeko, we have Pjanic, and we have Begovic. Absolutely great players. Pjanic played for Barcelona, he was absolutely incredible, and the rest were amazing. So after moving away from Yugoslavia, Bosnia have only got into the World Cup once, and that was in the 2014 Brazil World Cup. They have never got into the round of 16, so we'll see if this is their time. Something I really like about Bosnia is their flag, and I feel like whenever there's a good flag, I can really represent this in a medal. So I'll be designing a medal for Bosnia, and let's go into the drawings now to see what we go for. So next up is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, I really like the stars in their flag design, so this is why I used the star structure for the actual medal. But I felt like this was a bit simple, and if the players fell over during celebration, they'll get a ninja star to the chest. So it's probably not the best shout. The next idea was using the same thing as I used last video for DR Congo, where I put the stars on the outside of the medal. I really like this touch, so I think I'll be moving forward with this feature. So one of the next features I wanted to add to the medal was one of their famous bridges called the Starry Most. So this translates to the Old Bridge in English. I really like this, and it's very, very famous in Bosnia, but I feel like adding this to the design really makes it feel like home to the players, and it makes it very personalised. Another thing I wanted to add was patterns of flowers and little zigzag patterns, diamonds, as they use this on their clothing in their parades, where they have music, beer, so you can't really go wrong with it. It sounds like a normal English pub. So seeing as these patterns are widely used across clothing all over Bosnia, I felt like why not add them to the medal. So then it adds kind of a stylish appearance to the medal, so they can wear it everywhere and it will kind of fit in with their everyday clothes. So I've used this flower pattern instead of the stars of the flag, so there'll be blue on the top and there'll be yellow on the bottom. So it kind of uses lots of features from Bosnia and puts it into one design. But anyway, moving on to the actual design in Adobe Illustrator. Let's go.
So now moving on to the modelling for Bosnia. Now, as you can see, I chose to do a circular design, and I was originally going to do kind of a triangular design from their flag. However, you can't always choose stuff from their flag. You have to sometimes be a bit generic. This design uses a line down the centre, dividing the medal into two halves. Now, in the centre bit, there might be a pattern in the future, in the rendering stage, but I'm not too sure yet. And as you can see here, I'm using diamonds, and this is kind of a pattern, an array around the ring, and this is taken from the clothing that the dancers use.
So after modelling for Bosnia and Herzegovina, this is what we have. I'm really happy with this design. I love how it's turned out. We've used all of the colours from their flag. So we've got the yellow and the blue here. We also have an anodised outer ring with a patterned diamond white ring. And to make it a little bit more unique and a little bit more like they've won something rather than a fashion accessory, instead of doing just colourful flowers, we've made gold-plated flowers, so it really catches the light and it really stands out, I believe. So finally, with the ribbons of this design, they are made out of fabric which has nice white and blue patterns on it, and this really complements the rings on the inner and outer layers. But overall, I'm really happy with this design. Let's move on to the next country. We only have one left, so let's go. Let's see what we get. So now we're going to be moving on to our final country. Let's just hope it's a good one for our final one of this video. Let's take a look at what it's going to be. We end up getting Australia, the Socceroos of football. I hate how it's called Socceroos. It should be called Footballoos because they're just taking what America's using. It's a bit silly. But anyway, Australia's best results were in 2022 and 2006, where they got into the round of 16. Sadly, as Tim Cahill retired in 2019, he will not be in this World Cup, even though he was one of their strongest players of all time. And he played for the New York Red Bulls. But anyway, let's talk more about the design. Even though Australia have some good players, we'll see if they do well. It'll be a surprise if they get into the round of 16, but let's just go in with high hopes. So I've decided to design a badge for Australia. They use a lot of the colourings of you know, green and yellow, and they use this in lots of kits, especially in the Australian football. Another addition that I might add to the badge, as well as green and yellow, is also like kangaroos or maybe a nice koala on a tree. I think it might be quite fun. So that's where we could experiment with all of this. So anyway, let's get into it for our final design. Let's take a look at what we go for. So next up we have Australia, who I'm designing a badge for. Now, they use the emu and the kangaroo in their original badge. However, this is a very, very complex badge design. I wanted to make something a bit more simple, but still keeps all the features of Australia. We can see that I have done a Vegemite design because they like their Vegemite out there, and kangaroos, didgeridoos, and boomerangs. Those were all for Australian accents. Please cut that out. But one design which has beautiful architectural features is the Sydney Opera House. This design uses curves to kind of take shape of the waves, and seeing as I really wanted to use surfing in this design, the kind of surfboard shape, this really kind of takes a step further than that. And another feature I really wanted to add was the Australia football kind of ball design, as I really think the green and the yellow will work perfectly with the Sydney Opera House with all the curves. So now putting this into the final design, you can see this bottom right. I really like the look of it, and I really think the shapes complement each other. So now let's put this in Adobe Illustrator and add some colouring to make it look beautiful.
So as you can see, for Australia, we are designing a badge. Now, I really wanted to use the original kind of Football Australia design, which is orange and green, as I think it is just a nice touch, and it's a nice aesthetically pleasing thing to look at. And moving on to the whole shape of the badge, I really wanted to kind of use the Sydney Opera House, as when you think of Australia, you think of the Sydney Opera House. And I wanted to use different triangles, so I used the main structure. And this can be seen here, where I'm tracing around every single individual triangle, and it took me quite a while, you could say. Now, we'll be next moving on to putting this on top of kind of a water area, because, you know, the Sydney Opera House is on top of water, and it kind of looks like waves in my opinion, so it's quite a nice touch, I would say. So anyway, this is my final design, and adding a bit of the Australia FC like writing at the top and when it was established.
So as you can see, this is our final design for Australia FC. Now, as you can see, it looks a lot more simpler than the previous one. The previous one had a lot going on, a bit of emu action, a bit of kangaroo action, and then some middle action. It was a bit all over the place. So this is the final design, and it really directs your views to certain features which I find really interesting. So starting off with the top here, we have the Australia football symbol. Now this ball has a bit of curves in it, it's dark green, it's orange, it's playful, it's fun. So the reason I have chosen the Sydney Opera House is because it's a very famous landmark in Australia. You think of Australia, you think of the Sydney Opera House. And what does it look like? Waves on top of water. And oi oi mate, is that a surfboard? You think of waves, you think of surfboards. Australian people love surfing. So I've tried to use a bit of the surfboard in the structure, tried to drag it out a little bit, and personally I love this design. After looking at it for a while, you notice different features and different patterns, and I think this is really important when designing a logo, something that they'll have for a very long time. So anyway, that's enough for Australia's badge. Now let's see you back at the desk. Let's go. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. We're coming to the end now. We've got 8 countries out the way, but we still have 32 more countries to go. If you're enjoying this content, please remember to like and subscribe, and please keep designing yourself if you are, or get into it. I can try and inspire you a bit more. I will see you in a fizzle, and thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye. Oh Jesus, what the is that thing?
That's a
Oh, why are they attacking me? They're attacking me.